you know what? I'll just say this. The grocery store gonna get mad at me if I complain about the carts not being returned.
Wait, what?
Like if I come on the podcast and complain about something or talk about something,
Yeah.
am I supposed to talk about no people, places, or things while I'm here?
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope you're having a really good day so far. If you are new here, my name is Taylor. I come to you from Baltimore City, Maryland, and here on my YouTube channel I feature content that is generally focused on knitting and spinning. In this week's episode of what I call the Thread to Mend podcast, where I sit down, I share with you the things that I'm currently working on, we have a ton to review, and you're not going to believe it. You're really not. So we're going to talk about Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. That was last weekend. That is why we were not together here on my channel on Sunday at 9 a.m. for the live premiere. But if you are here for the premiere, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We would all love to know. And I want to give a sincere hello and welcome to all of you there. And as well as the many new subscribers here to my channel. I don't know why, I don't know how, but my last video, picked up a lot of new viewers. So if you are new here, welcome. Thank you for subscribing. And for all of my longtime subscribers, everyone out there, y'all are the best. So anyway, we have a lot to dive into. Editing Taylor here. I am so distracted by the shine of my complexion in this week's video. I applied a mineral-based sunscreen that I truly regret. I want to believe in mineral sunscreen. I just cannot put it on my face. I wish I never did. It just accentuates every amount of texture. It's shiny. It just, my complexion throughout this video is sincerely annoying to me. So whatever. I know you don't care, but I care. And I just needed you to know I don't like it. Before we get into the knitting, I'm going to bore a few of you with a little fragrance talk real quick because I feel like I owe it to Dossier, who reached out to me and they said, we would love to know what your favorites have been and if there's a new fragrance you want to try. So they sent out to me 3 new bottles of my 2 favorites and a brand new one to me. If you don't know, Dossier is a fragrance house that offers inspiration fragrances. So they will isolate some of the most niche and high-end or designer fragrances, sort of recreate them and then package them in their standard bottle. And they keep the price really low by not marketing it a whole lot. They don't put too much investment in their packaging, but it is a really nice solid packaging. The caps are magnetic and I've never had any issue with any of them leaking or anything like that, which I have had with other affordable fragrances. Anyway, they did send me the Powdery Tobacco, which is inspired by Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. And I've never had the chance to smell the real Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille because every time I go to Nordstrom, all of the sample display bottles are completely empty. So annoying to me. We just can't have nice things in Baltimore, I guess. This smells like a chai latte to me. It's kind of peppery at the first, what do you call that? The top note smells like real cracked pepper, like actual pepper, and I don't hate it. Whenever I smell pepper in a men's cologne fragrance, it's not my favorite. I don't gravitate towards pepper notes, and this doesn't say anything about pepper. It says top notes are tobacco, ginger, apricot, middle notes honey, vanilla, cocoa, and then base notes of tonka bean, dry fruits, and blonde woods. It's warm, it's milky in my mind, and it smells like black tea to me. But that might be with my body chemistry. I don't know, but that's new to me and my little small growing collection of fragrances. And I will tell you, if you're new here, you might not already know, my favorite fragrance to wear is the Dossier Musky Gaiac. And this is inspired by Le Labo's Gaiac 10, I think it's called. It's just so good. I can't describe it to you because it smells unlike anything I've ever smelled, but it's obviously a woody fragrance. I think it's fresh. I think it's clean. I think it's warm, and I just love it. I love the Musky Gaiac. I have smelled the original Le Labo Gaiac 10. It smells the same, maybe a little bit more dense and long wearing. I'm not sure. I actually, the sample I had fell and broke. So I had it for a very short while. I didn't really get the chance to wear it that much, but I would say the Dossier version is as good and a fraction of the price. I think these bottles retail for $29 to maybe $39 or $49 at most, and a Le Labo fragrance is gonna run closer to like maybe $300, I think. So for about a tenth of the price, more or less. I'm really fudging that math, but love the Musky Gaiac. That's my favorite fragrance. If I had any signature fragrance, I would say that's probably one of my top few signature fragrances. And then the second favorite is actually not for me. This is a fragrance that Brian wears every night before bed. He'll put it on and it just smells so good. And it is the Woody Sandalwood by Dossier. This is their inspiration fragrance of Le Labo's Santal 33, which is hugely popular. Tons of people wear it. I actually have a small, like a larger sample of this, and I thought I would compare them today before sitting down to record because I was kind of curious. I sprayed them both on my wrists today. I can't tell the difference. I can't tell the difference at all. But also, this fragrance does not work with my body chemistry. It smells so different on me than it does Brian, and I really like the way it smells on Brian. So this is his. He's put a huge dent in it, and these are the originals, so I've put quite a dent in mine as well, and I'm so excited to have backups of these fragrances, because if there's any two in my entire collection, I know that these are the two I'm gonna run out of. So I am just so grateful to Dossier for thinking of me again. They had sent me stuff to review in the past. They wanted to send me a few more things, and I am grateful to you for listening to my spiel about fragrance, even though I know most of you couldn't give much care for that. But anyway, I love fragrance. I love smelling good, and I like my knitwear to smell good. And if you haven't noticed, I am wearing a finished Slipstravaganza by Stephen West. I finished this shawl before Maryland Sheep and Wool. I was weaving in ends in the car ride there and in line and this morning because I didn't quite finish. And I even still found 4 ends that I forgot to weave in that I still need to weave in somewhere in here. You might have seen them. But anyway, this is my finished Slipstravaganza shawl. It is very large. It is in charge. And, you know, I like it, but am I in love with it? I don't know. I don't know what to wear it with, because no matter what I'm wearing with it, I feel very loud. Even though I went with a very muted color story, it's like just, it's a loud design. It has a lot to say, and there's a lot going on. And I think that if I had maybe just a black or charcoal gray sweater, because I'm wearing like stripes and actually I like the stripes with all of the things going on here. I feel like it makes it a little less loud, because I was wearing this at Maryland with my wool and honey sweater, which I think you've seen me wearing in last week's video. I don't know, but I feel like maybe these go well together. This is a Kate Davies design. I forget the name of it, but it is a dolman sleeve design, and I knit it in a slightly different gauge, so mine turned out to be much smaller than the original. And one thing I don't love about my version of it is I kind of have to pull it under my elbows a little bit. So I would knit this again. It has the slightest amount of shaping along the back, but I love this design, and I would wear it. I would make it again. I did knit this with my hand spun. This is very early hand spun for me, and it's very hard wearing. It is soft because it is Cormo. It is all fiber that I naturally dyed in the wool. I haven't experimented too much with how to wear this shawl. I kind of just throw it over my shoulders, but let's see how it looks this way. Maybe it'll be a little less loud. Hello, I don't think you've ever met Sultry Kitchen. This is our third kitty cat. You can see she's ear tipped. I brought her in from outside. One of our neighbors had trapped her as a very small kitten, and I got her fixed through the Baltimore City shelter and just decided I was not going to give her up. I was having a bit of a crisis that month. It was my birthday month, so I felt like I needed a third cat. And that is Sultry Kitchen. And now I'm covered in cat hair. This is Stephen West's Slipstravaganza. It's almost a little too humid to want to wear a shawl right now, but I thought I would show it to you. It could not even fit in frame here for a second, but this is that. Maryland Sheep and Wool was last weekend. It was a ton of fun. It was amazing. It was everything I dreamed it would be.
I look up to the sky.
Find the center,
to remind me.
because that's where the outside is, because I roll the skin side outward.
I look
So anyway,
right
I'm kind of digging into the middle,
behind me.
and then I'm looking for pieces like this that tell
In
me
one moment,
there's a lot of them, then there's a bunch of pieces that I don't want to spin,
in the
and
next
it might be a waste.
glance,
This one
you're
doesn't have like any big chunks like
I
that.
keep
Like
my
this is
head up
and expected.
and my voice tone, just how you wanted me to.
So tell me about this.
I don't know. I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
With my arms outstretched for you to find me. Around in circles, I get so dizzy till I can't see. I will not hide any longer. I am spinning around. Won't you catch me for old times? I'm counting down, I'm counting down, I'm counting down. I'm counting down, I'm counting down, I'm counting down. I'm counting down, I'm counting down, I'm counting down. I'm counting down, I'm counting down, I'm counting down until I see you. I'm counting down, I'm counting down, I'm counting down until I see you. I'm counting down, I'm counting down, I'm counting down until I see you. I'm counting down, I'm counting down until I see you.
See. Is this gonna work? I don't know either. Oh no, my finger got the shot.
it's just a game. 'Cause I got high hopes.
That time of day when you start to think about lunch, and you certainly want to get a lamb sandwich.
Jacob breeders bringing up their sheep and natural colored long wools. So if you have not done so, we would encourage you to go ahead and get those natural colored long wools from your Jacob's purpose of the Jacob Sheep Breeders Association is to ensure the conservation of this heritage breed through inspection, registration, and education. Our community members have Jacob blocks throughout the U.S. and Canada. And we can, if you're interested in learning more about this particular breed, their website is www.jsd.com.
thank you to Laura, who split the Cordell fleece with me. If it weren't for her, I never would have brought it home. It was more fiber than I needed, but she really pulled through for me and helped me out with splitting that fleece. So I want to thank Laura for that. Very lovely person. I almost forgot to go into my experience at the wool barn. So when we were in the wool barn, I got to meet Cheryl. I also got to meet up with so many other people. Laura was there. She and I split the Cordell fleece together. That was an amazing gift to me from her, to just have the opportunity to just bring as much as I needed home. So I have about 2 pounds of that Cordell fleece to wash today. But I also got to meet Katie. Katie has a channel here on YouTube. I will try to tag her channel down below. I got to see Tazi there, and I got to meet a few other people. I can't even recall everyone's names. While in the wool barn, I got to meet Paulina, who was there with her friend, and we video messaged Felicia, and that was so much fun. And then while Brian was in line waiting to for me to purchase my fleeces, he was waiting in line for me while I was running around the wool barn looking for a fleece with Paulina for her to buy and process for the first time. And I think we found a good one. It was so much fun. I enjoyed meeting so many of you. I was in line for cotton candy and I got to meet more viewers, and I was just like blown away by the kindness of strangers. Not real strangers, because like I feel like if you're here, then like we're here together, but it's nice to meet people and put faces to the names. It was the most extroverted weekend I've ever had, and it was so fun and so rewarding and so fulfilling, but also I was like so wiped out. By the middle of the day, I was just sitting at the sheep show and just like resting my feet because I was just so tired. And I got to meet up with Valerie and chat with her, and I got to spend time just like sitting and talking, and that was really nice. And I didn't even like go to many of the booths. I really didn't shop my heart out this year. I went to the main kind of venues, but other than that, I didn't really even like poke around a lot of the outside stuff. I was just kind of like so tired by the end of the day that I was ready for dinner. And yeah, it's kind of like it was a whirlwind of a day. The minute I walked into the wool barn, I got to meet Cheryl, who is so generous and so kind and so loving. And she immediately greeted me with this vintage basket. Now, the stuff inside I have to show you. And she gave me, along with it, some gorgeous doilies as well. Very decorative, gorgeous doilies. In my previous video, I had mentioned baskets and how much I love them. And this one is just the coolest. I've never seen a basket like this one, the way that the handle connects. It is so nice. And I just enjoyed, I've put this at the top of my stairs, right under my cuckoo clock, where there's just sort of this blank space at the landing. And I just love looking at it. So when I got to the wool barn, I was immediately greeted by Cheryl. She gave me this amazing basket. I was crying. It was just so touching and so sweet because, you know, you guys are like my people. You watching this video right now, like you get me. You understand. You listen. You know. And so it was just so exciting to be greeted with such an amazing gift. And I was there to shop wools, and I was just like overwhelmed by the volume of fleeces around me. So excited to look at every single one of them I could. Every time I'm in the wool barn, I'm thinking it's like a race against time because somebody else is gonna find the fleece I want. And it's sort of this like scarcity mentality of like time, because it's like you there's a lot of competition around almost, it seems. But anyway, so I felt like I have one regret from the day, and it is I wish I spent more time with Cheryl, because that might have been the only opportunity I had to talk more with her and get to know her and connect on a human to human level. And I feel like I missed an opportunity there. But the opportunity was only missed because of my excitement for wool. And I think that's why we're all here. So I'm sure she understands, I hope. And I found a couple fleeces, I brought home, the first I intend to show you right now, what I believe is a lamb's fleece. It's a Jacob fleece. It weighs 2 pounds and it was $40, I think. So rather affordably priced. And I divided it into 3 parts. So I divided it into the brown, the mix, and the white, because you might already know a Jacob sheep has multiple colorings that are kind of patchworky, kind of like a cowhide sort of aesthetic. And I wanted to separate the color as much as I could so that I could do a little bit of color work or something with the project. And then any parts that I couldn't separate completely, I would blend together and mix into its own thing. So, did I already say my sunscreen is really sticky today? Everything is sticking to my face. It's so annoying. I'm never going to wear it again. So as I said, I do suspect this is a lamb's wool fleece because I have worked with Jacob before. It was a machine carded fiber, and it was much more of a medium grade fiber than this one is. This fiber is as soft as any Cormo I've ever processed. It's not dense like some Cormo can be. The stable length is a little shorter than a Cormo would be. I think it's probably standard for a Jacob fleece, but it is so soft and so fine. And it's just, I don't know if you can see this, but it's just, you know, got that very open crimp. It's not too, I don't know. Sometimes some fibers, like medium grade fibers, can be a little bit wiry feeling in certain areas. I did not have much of that at all. I feel like that also happens with age. Like as an animal gets older, its fiber can become a little bit more coarse over time and a little bit more, I don't want to say rustic, but I can't think of a better term. Just a little bit more coarse, a little bit more wiry maybe. And this just feels very, very soft for Jacob. And I got to shop a lot of Jacob fleeces. There were tons of Jacob sheep this year. So this is the dark blackish brown fiber. It's brown. And you can see the tips are a little sun bleached. This is the first fleece in a very long time that I've bought that is not coated. So it was very clean, considering it hadn't been wearing a coat to keep it clean. And that's another reason I think it might have been a lamb or maybe kid fleece, because considering the fact it wasn't coated, it did not have a lot of hay in it, which makes me think it might not have eaten hay for that long. I don't know. I also have here the fleece that is mixed. So you can see it's like a little this, a little that. All of this has been washed. That's why I have it in this towel here. And I didn't record my process of washing this fleece because after Saturday, I was wiped out. I was done. I was battery level dead. And so because I just didn't feel like it, I didn't record anything. I do regret it. I was telling myself, you're gonna regret this in the moment, but it was one of those times where you just feel like this is for me right now. Like this is not about anyone else. This is just for me. And so I picked apart this fleece. I laid it out in rows. I soaked it overnight in a small tub, and then I washed it on the stove with my little 2-part system I have shown many times before on my channel. I will link below to multiple videos I have already posted to my channel about how I wash and scour my fleeces. So that resource is already here for you to view, and I will make it easy by including a link in the description box. But this fleece is washed. 2 pounds of wool that I've brought home are clean, and that's really exciting to me because the other fleece I have brought home is not yet scoured, and I am determined to make my house smell good again by the end of tomorrow. I have to soak and scour 4 pounds, I think it is. No, I purchased 4¼ pounds of Corriedale fleece, and roughly 2 pounds more or less are waiting to be washed on my dining room table right now. And I will show you a little bit about that, but here I have my washed Jacob, and then an exciting surprise for you all is the white fiber that I had washed first. I've already started to process. I have about the same amount as I have here, ready to comb or already combed, and I intend to spin that as well. But here I have, actually I haven't weighed it yet. I have my scale right here. It might still be holding on to the tiniest bit of moisture, so I cannot confirm if this weight is 100% accurate. And this is 106 grams. So 106 grams of fiber. I counted the loops after I had soaked it and I was hanging it to dry. That's usually when I count my loops, because I feel like number one, it's really easy to lose count when you're counting the loops of fiber in your skein. But the yarn is a lot less plump, and it's a little easier to distinguish it one strand from the next when it's wet. So I have this habit of soaking my finished yarn, kind of gently squeezing the water out, and then I hang it over a door, and then I'll count the loops. And because I have a nitty knotty that is the larger variety, it says it should be 2 yards per full loop, and I counted I think 199 loops, so that would make this a roughly 400 yard skein of yarn. It is probably one of the softest, most plump, and under spun skein I've ever made. So there's no part of this that feels overdone. I'm kind of finding that middle ground where it's not underspun, but it's not overspun. And I can't decide if I love that or if I don't know, my spinning has just evolved over time. This sweater that I'm wearing here, the singles are very overspun and the ply is very overplied, and knitting with this yarn was like knitting with rope. Tiny rope, fine, delicate rope. This is nothing like that. This is airy and soft. It is worsted prep, so I did prepare this fiber on my hand combs. I'm very happy with this yarn. I'm very happy, and hopefully I'll be able to spin enough of this that I will have a sweater quantity, more or less, to hopefully do like a full-on. I would love a full colorwork garment out of hand spun. I think that would be delicious and amazing. If I were to do a fingering weight spin of the dark brown and this, and I end up with about 200 grams each, I think that that's more than enough to knit a full colorwork sweater, which would be a total labor of love. I would love to have in my possession one of those very like traditional Scandinavian full colorwork jacket type of garments, and with a sweater with a yarn as soft as this. That would be, I mean, absolute pure luxury right there. And yeah, I'm as excited to knit with this as I am to finish spinning the rest of this fleece. I think I'm going to just continue to jump into this. I do wish I finished my previous spinning project. Oh, it's like way up there in this little box thing I have, but it's more of this fiber here that I was spinning before the festival. It's crazy to think that I, in a single week, have purchased, scoured, combed, and spun an entire skein of yarn, let alone washed the other like 1 3/4 pounds of fiber. So I'm like, wow.
Wow, look at this.
I was up until midnight a couple nights just getting the singles done so that I would have time to ply them, let them rest, and then ply them together. I'm not quite sure why, but I'm having a really hard time finding words this week. I think that's what happens when I take a week off recording, but I am just so stinking proud of myself for purchasing a fleece, scouring the entire thing. Granted, it was only 2 pounds, but to hand comb and spin an entire skein of fingering weight yarn in a single week, that's astounding. That is incredible. And I'm just really glad I did it, because I feel like I'm gonna have a really exciting garment in my future. I'm noticing a little spot where I spun the tiniest bit of dark fiber. I don't think you're gonna see it. I'm gonna have to tease that out because I don't want that there. I tried to be very careful not to mix any of the dark fiber with the white. Wow, that was easier than I thought. Anyway, this is lovely. This is luxury. Do you see how like much air is in this squishy squish town? It is truly one of the bounciest and squishiest yarns. It doesn't have too much twist anywhere. I think there might be some areas where like one of the 2 plies has maybe a little bit more twist to it than the other. Of course, I'm not the most like measured spinner. Sometimes I change it up a little here and there, and I probably shouldn't. I should probably stick to a single plan in the process of spinning a single skein, but I'm never quite exactly sure which is right. So I'll sometimes switch up my speed or my technique, and I wish I didn't do that because it would make a more consistent yarn. But you know, you learn by doing a lot of the time. I feel like my spinning has just rapidly evolved in recent time since my spinning challenge in the last few weeks. So I really skeined this up poorly. Anyway, this is my hand spun skein, the most exciting thing I think that I took home from the festival. Of course, I have that entire fleece to show you, which I will insert into this week's video. And then the one other purchase from this year's Maryland Sheep and Wool was a single skein from Jill Draper. Jill Draper Makes Stuff. One of my favorite little indie niche yarn providers. She has all of her bases custom spun for her, and I think that's really cool. So it's not like a standard, you know, shipped from a mill overseas type of base. It's a truly unique base of yarn, and if I'm not mistaken, her skeins of yarn are spun from Green Mountain Spinnery. I did hit up the Green Mountain Spinnery booth. They didn't have the color I was looking for, and when I went to Jill Draper's booth, I found the exact color I desired, and it is this very lovely ochre sort of lichen-y shade. It looks like she calls this Turmeric 3. It's her Ansel base. It's 440 yards per 4 ounces, so that is 113 grams. And this, I was thinking, would be the green shade to the Vertices Unite shawl I talked about in last week's video. I feel like this color, I'm missing a skein here. I feel like this color just lends itself a tiny bit better than the one I had shown in my last video. And I think that a lot of you will agree. So many of you said do the green. The green is great. A few of you said, don't do the green. I like the neutrals better. But I think that this is the best of both because it's green, but it's more of a golden green. It's a lot less greeny green. And I feel like it really bridges the gap between the very warm, rich orange color and then the rest of the neutrals. I don't know. I knew when I saw this that this was the one. And of course, as soon as I have my entire color story selected, I decide, I don't think I'm going to knit the Vertices Unite. Because I had just finished this Stephen West shawl. And as much as I love it and it's stunning, I mean, this is stunning.
Absolutely stunning. Stunning. This is so stunning, isn't it? She's absolutely stunning.
I just don't feel deeply connected to the design. I don't feel like it is me in a nutshell. I feel like it's me trying on Stephen West. And the Vertices Unite, it's not as extreme of a design as this. It's a lot more like chill. Like it seems like it's a lot easier. But I was looking at the construction of it and just kind of imagining how it's pieced together, and I'm thinking like it looks easy, but it looks like easy to mess up as well. Like you can forget where you're increasing and where you're not, and you could easily make a shape that's not the design. And I was just kind of getting in my head about the entire process of making it, and I'm thinking, in the back of my mind, I don't know if I've said this out loud to you all yet, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I make so much hand spun yarn. I want to knit other people's designs with my hand spun. That way, I'm not like trying to put a pattern out into the world that is made of an impossible to acquire yarn that might have no comparison. So because I want to continue to design and I want to continue to spin yarn, which are kind of the antithesis of each other. I mean, one is completely inaccessible to most. I mean, most people like can't touch or feel or compare your hand spun yarn to anything else. And so it's like, I just don't want to put any more designs out here made with my hand spun. I want my patterns to be accessible to people. And while I'm limited in time, I'm thinking if I'm ever going to knit with non-hand spun yarn, I should make it a new pattern because I love the process of creating exactly what I want in my wardrobe. And I know that I would love a very dynamic design, but something that is unique to me, something that's exactly like what I want, like the shapes I want to make and the design that I want to execute. I'm thinking I might instead come up with a unique design that is just my own. I don't know. I'm kind of getting way ahead of myself, but yeah. Also, like, these are still niche yarns, so anyway, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just collecting individual skeins of yarn and telling myself I'm going to do something again in the future I don't have time for. So that's that on that. Every year that we attend Maryland Sheep and Wool, we go to Frederick for dinner. It's just a little further away from home, but totally worth it because they have some of my favorite food in that town. And of course we went to the Magpie Fiber, what do they call it, flagship store, you know, the Magpie Fibers yarn shop. And there was just so much there that it's overwhelming because every time I'm in a yarn store, I'm just like, I don't need anything. I don't need anything because I have it all. I have everything I could ever need. So what I allowed myself to buy is I just picked up a bunch of fiber that I have to spend a lot of time spinning. What I let myself bring home from Magpie is a single skein of Le Petite Lamb's Wool from Biche and Bouche. And if you're not already familiar, this is the exact same yarn I'm currently using to knit my bubble cardigan. And instead of playing a game of yarn chicken with this new tank top that I'm knitting, I thought I would just pick up a skein and not worry about the yardage. Just start the tank top and don't think too much about whether you're gonna have enough or not. So I just got this skein. It was like $14. It's like the least I could have spent inside that store, and it was something I kind of felt like I needed, even though I probably can get away without having the extra yardage. I started knitting my swatch. I was at a work event, and I wasn't sure if I could get on without my knitting in hand. So I just brought a random small gauge needle and the one color yarn I know will be far more than I need for the actual project. I'm not going to swatch in stripes. I'm just going to swatch in a solid color. If you're wondering what I'm swatching for, I talked a lot about it in my previous video, which you might have seen, and it's the recreation of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour poster tank she's wearing in her Lavender Haze music video. It's editing Taylor again. I feel like a lot of people have a lot of things to say about Taylor dating this Matty Healy guy. I don't know anything about him. What I do know about him is that he was public in an interview about going to rehab, love that, for heroin only like 7 months ago or something. It was like October through December, and now they're dating in like March, April. I just feel like any person in recovery should not date their first year. I mean, that's what I have been told by people in recovery, is that you really should not just jump into a relationship, because that's sort of like, you know, love is sort of like a drug. Like in your brain chemistry, it's like more drug related than anything in our normal lives. Anyway, I just feel like this is a disaster. We're on a train that is like about to derail, and we all know it's coming. I don't want to be that invested in a celebrity's personal life, but I just feel like this can't end well. It won't. I mean, well, what else do we expect? I mean, it's a rebound, right? It's a rebound. That's all this is, right? So I started swatching. I just chose the one color I know I have the most yardage of, that I will certainly not run out of. And I picked up a size 3, which is my preferred smallest size needle. I will have to knit this with a needle much smaller because this gauge is just not it. I would rather use a tighter knit, so that even though it's a very racy sort of structure garment, it's not going to be see-through. I would rather not that. So I'm probably going to go down to a size 2 needle and then start swatching again. I really didn't get very far with this one, but I can kind of just tell by the feel of it and the lack of opacity that I'm going to go down a size. And I think what I'm going to do is knit between the increases and decreases. So there's a center stitch decrease, which is my favorite double decrease. You basically slip 2 stitches as if to knit together. You just slip those onto the working needle, knit 1, and then slip those 2 stitches over, and it makes the best center decrease ever. And then instead of doing yarn overs like a traditional chevron, I think I'm going to do make one left, make one right, so that it's a little bit more of a closed fabric. But I am going to reference the original product images again, just to see exactly which increases it looks like they executed in their fabric. And then again, I didn't swatch the actual fabric. I'm just swatching in stockinette, because that's going to give me the most easy to count stitches per inch fabric. And of course, I'm not going to get nearly the same number of rows per inch in stockinette as I will in the more mixed sort of garter fabric that the pattern or that the original piece is. That I'm actually just going to do on the fly. I'm going to start this garment with the bottom tie band. I have 100 grams or 4 ounces, I'm not sure, of lace weight white merino. I'm going to hold it double, and I'm going to knit the entire length of that band for like 2 inches, and then I'm going to knit it together so that I have the band in place. and the band is whatever it needs to be. And then I'm going to mark the sides of my fabric where I'm going to knit flat, and I'm going to map out my numbers. So I think for my numbers, because Taylor Swift loves the number 13, I'm going to have a knit 13 between the increases and decreases. And I'm going to do the number of chevron shaping identical to the original. So I think it's like there's 4 areas where it peaks or dips. I can't recall off the top of my head. I will reference it when it's time to kind of calculate the numbers. But based on my guesstimation of this gauge, I feel like this is going to be a little bit too big. So going down a size is going to be perfect. I'm going to also take another closer look at the back edging along the sides and see what that looks like before I start knitting the body of this piece, because I want to make sure I have the right number of stitches on the side of the fabric so that I know what I'm picking up into and how that looks. Anyway, I think that's it for this week's episode of the Thread to Mend podcast. Stick around. I'm going to insert a garden tour. I'm going to give you a couple updates. Our nasturtiums are really growing nice and big. The strawberries are putting on color. Looks like I've lost one or more to a slug or two, but there might be some snacking later on today. We'll see. I picked up a bunch of plants from the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, as I always do. I popped a couple new thyme plants into the ground over here. I chose this area because I'm hoping they might make a nice little ground cover under my peach tree, and I've never found any cat feces in this bed. It's not an area where they're prone to mess with, so I thought it might be a little safer since it might end up in a non-cooked dish. The blueberries are really starting to blow up. They might ripen in a week or two. And some of the nasturtiums I popped into this very densely packed bed have made their way through the canopy, so that is exciting. And I have a bunch of brown-eyed Susans, black-eyed Susan, echinacea here. You all know that already, I think. But look at this brand new stalk on my rose bush. It is a monster. And my rose bush has put on a ton of blooms. So many of them have opened up overnight. And they're just so beautiful. And look at these like 6 stem roses happening. I think I have like a ton over here. Anyway, very, very pretty. I love the heucheras beneath them. I think that they're just so nice and lovely. I might one day pop the purple ones out and just extend the same color across the bottom row, but I was just filling in spaces here. I'd like to propagate heucheras as much as I can because they're such a nice gift. People love them, and you can never have too many. This plant here, which I did take a picture of the name of it, I'll put it up on the screen. I cannot recall what this plant is called, but it's putting up stalks. So I think that we're going to have flowers in the near future. So it's like there's stalks now. It's not just leaves at the base, which is really exciting. I can't wait to see this flower. My violas have held on pretty strong. I have a few more nasturtiums poking through those. All of the raspberries are in bloom right now. We have some pollinators taking care of that business. And my calendula is much further behind this year than previous years. I don't know if that's because I didn't put it out early enough or plant it soon enough, but no flowers yet, none at all. And the tiny little basils I put out are doing better than they were inside. I don't know why, but my basil, everything I started indoors really kind of got off to a poor start. I don't know what that's about. I think I usually plant my seeds into compost, and this year I planted them into seed starting mix, which doesn't have fertilizer, or maybe potting mix, which has a very low grade fertilizer. Anyway, the sorrel is going to seed, it looks like. I might cut them back because I don't want a field of sorrel in my yard. And those were planted by a bird. I actually split it. This is a self-sown sunflower. I have a few in the yard. There's like some here and there. I have a nice big one in that corner. I don't think you can see it from here, but it's right by the peach tree. And this is where I like to plant my sunflowers annually, so I'm really excited about that. It's so big. It's so much bigger than any of the ones I started inside. In fact, I don't think I've started any sunflower seeds indoors that are making their way outside and gonna grow this year. Every sunflower I'm growing this year was self-sown. And there's a few in the front yard too. But this bed is still a chaotic disaster, but I'm gonna let it be that this summer. I'm just gonna let everything kind of grow up and mature. And then at the end of summer, in the beginning of fall, when I get bored with everything else, I'm going to kind of dig everything up, rearrange it. My bird bath is kind of sunk into the ground because I've put so much effort into building my soil, and that one object has kind of stayed in the exact same place. So while I'm kind of relocating everything, I'm going to take advantage of that open area opportunity to kind of lift the top, maybe give it a good scrub, maybe power wash it, we'll see, and then kind of uproot the base a little bit because it's very much low into the ground. Anyway, the black berries are starting to bud. The black raspberries are fruiting. They're always the first berry to bear ripe fruit, which is really exciting. And I have planted a ton of cucumbers along all of my trellises. I don't normally have the best luck growing on this third trellis here because it does have the greatest tree canopy. I love these trees. They're just my favorite. But I am going to try and see what sticks. So I have 2 cucumbers on that side. I think I just have one on this side because this is like right directly under this tree. So it's the absolute most shaded of all of the canopy or arbor areas. But then I have 2 cucumbers here on the second arbor. This one has a single cucumber on one side, and then that there is a type of squash I've never grown before. So we'll see. It's the only squash in our yard. I planted 3 others in the Wheeler's yard, and I'm hoping that those do well because I would really love to try eating some squash this summer or fall. My bleeding hearts are still flowering, and they've just grown massive. They've never been this big before. And we'll see how long they hold on through the summer. I feel like they provide like a little blanket of shade to my hellebores, which are already in the shade. But the stilbees are doing all right. That one got pretty smashed from the tree limb that fell, but it seems like it's doing okay. And the hellebores are still like flowering, or the flowers are still like holding on strong. I think that they're probably growing seed by now. Some of them do, some of them don't. Yeah, I see some seeds in there, which I'd love to grow more hellebore from seeds in my garden. I have 3 new columbine plants that I put right here, and a beautiful flowering, shucks, what's that called? I have the tag right there, I just can't read it. I think it might prefer more bright light. It's in like near total shade. This area does get direct sun in the early morning and early afternoon, but it's also very shaded. So there's just a smorgasbord of things over here. I have a rosemary bush, which this pocket gets the most amount of sun. So I thought I would put it there because it's like literally the only place in the garden where there's any room to plant anything that gets direct sun. But that is the garden tour. I think I skipped over the horseradish. If you've been watching my channel for years, you know I have horseradish here, and I'll never not have horseradish here because it's like impossible to dig up, which is fine. I love horseradish, and I love that I can grow my own. I hesitate to eat roots grown in the city soil, but I don't really eat a ton of horseradish, so you know, I'm not that worried about it. I do need to eventually, very soon, I know I've said it a bunch of times and I still have not yet, I need to top these nettles because those are seeds about to burst, and I'm not interested in a bed full of nettles. So this rose bush, I think I really took it down a notch when I fertilized it. It really hasn't bounced back from that over fertilizing, and I'm squishing aphids off it now. So it looks like the aphids have found this bush. What I think I'm going to do is rinse it down really good, and then after the rain has stopped, give it a neem oil spray. See if we can nip these in the bud, because I'm not interested in an aphid infestation. They're easy to manage while they're little, but once they're big, they're kind of scary. They scare me. And normally I'm like not so prone to just squishing them, but like I said, I'm not afraid of them when they're little. Usually when it's like dry, I'll come out here with a roll of tape and I'll scoop them up onto the sticky surface of the tape. But when it's wet, that's not really possible, is it? There's a bunch of new growth. Maybe we'll get some buds. Oh, look. I didn't even notice. There's some flowering buds already ready to bust. Oh, there's a spider web. I'm not going to move this chair too much, but this heuchera is the mother of all of my purple heucheras in all of my garden space. And this tree, this little, what's it called? Alpine spruce, is doing fine. I thought I would kill it by now, but it's holding on strong. It seems like it maybe wishes it had a little bit more sunlight, possibly. I'm seeing some dying. What is it? Yeah, I mean, there's some piney needles dropping. I don't know if that's normal or not, but it's put on quite a bit of new growth. Maybe because it's reaching for the light, I'm not sure. This is a self-sown pumpkin. I believe it's a pumpkin. It's the one pumpkin plant that self-sown I haven't relocated. So it's doing very, very, very well. The others I did relocate into the Wheeler's yard, and you might be able to see them over there, but I think that we're gonna have a lot of pumpkins this fall, which is gonna be really fun. And I did pick up a lemon verbena. This is one of my favorite herbs. I just love it so much. In fact, I think I'm going to harvest some of this so that I can have a nice strong bushy plant. And then under this pumpkin are all of my lettuces that remain. I planted this whole box full of lettuce, and then the box became a cat bed or two, and they kind of stifled the growth of most of my lettuces. But it looks like there's enough in here to cut a little side salad. So maybe I'll actually prune some of the things and take care of that one day. I don't know, we'll see. But then I have a bunch of random stuff. There's more calendula here, peppermint. I planted some flowers from seed. I don't know how well they're gonna do, but they look like they're holding on. And every seed that I started, flower seed that I started, that I had room for, I planted in that bed there. So there's gonna hopefully be flowers growing in the garden that are not just perennials, but some annuals. And I just don't have any promises that much of them are gonna take to that space. It's an area that doesn't get the most amount of light, but you can see, I mean, it's indirect, bright light for 4 to 6 hours, maybe. So anyway, that is our garden tour. It's very wet. The lilacs are gone. They're over. They're toast. But look at that creeping Jenny. It is just, oh, look, I have a nettle. Let me take this to the compost bin real quick. I'm checking on the compost bin. That is sawdust, if you're wondering. Looks like we're at an ideal temperature, 110. Here's some of the leftover wool from my wool washing. And that is this week's garden tour. I hope you all enjoyed that. It's probably the best my garden has ever looked. So that's it for our garden tour this week. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and that you take care.